Hey everyone, this is Mr. S. Today on Lesson 6, what happened to other herbivores on the Serengeti after the big change created by disease? So our objective for today is obtaining, analyzing, and communicating information about the factors that explain why the wildebeest population and the buffalo population in the Serengeti are affected differently by changes in their environment. Last class, if you remember, we learned that rinderpest disease played a big role in the buffalo population range due to that reading we did, the New York Times reading, and you made the timeline and notes for that. And so you should have the student activity sheet up. Like most classes, today I want you to start by the warm-up questions. So what did we decide that we wanted to investigate today? And what are the next steps we should take to answer our question today? Okay, so go ahead and pause the video, take a few minutes to do that, and we'll go to part 1. Some prompts to think about are what did we do last time? And we agreed what we wanted to figure out, some things in our last lesson, and so what were they? And I want you to also, while you're working on this, talk to your elbow partner, the person on your left and right, and just go over what do we need to figure out. Some things, for example, are we figured out the buffalo population was increasing a lot. We figured out it was because of a disease. What else had happened? And I'm happy to discuss with you too if you want to discuss this. Okay, so now what we're going to be doing is comparing buffalo and wildebeests. So what are some similarities and differences, and what patterns do you notice? So, fortunately, I was able to find a lot of data about the wildebeest population in the Serengeti during this time. So now we can use that to compare and figure out what might be going on with the wildebeest. So we kind of how are we going to make sense of the vaccine and the information we have about the buffalo and why its population has changed? And by doing that, we can compare it to another animal to see if that was the biggest reason or the most significant. So here are the graphs. And so I want you to analyze the graphs below. The top graph is the buffalo population graph you've previously examined, and the bottom graph is the wildebeest population in the Serengeti during the same time period. What patterns do you notice in these table and the graph? And so record these in the space called observations, right here. Okay, so what do you notice about these two graphs? And then answer the initial ideas questions that follows. So that'd be number 5. So just everything that you notice, and you can please work with a partner to talk about what do you notice, the similarities and differences between the African buffalo population and the wildebeest population in the Serengeti. Okay? What are some similarities in the two graphs? What are some differences in the two graphs? What patterns do you notice in the buffalo graph after rinderpest? What patterns do you notice in the wildebeest graph after rinderpest? So go ahead and mark when the rinderpest happened and make note of that as well. Okay, and so when you're done with that, we're going to be on part 2 now. Okay, so what factors are affecting the population size? And what are some differences and similarities between the two populations? So in order to figure that out, I want you to examine these graphs and think about where they came from, the data sources. So how do we know that this is valid information? Where did it come from in these 3 graphs? And then identify the factors that seem to affect the buffalo and wildebeest. Keep track of your findings about each of the populations in the comparison table below. So you'll use this table to document what are the factors of the different buffaloes and wildebeests and what's affecting them with the disease. So let me know, what did you figure out about the factors that affect the population size? How can a population grow? What has to be true about the number of individuals born compared to the number that die? Which has babies faster, etc. Okay, and document everything you can find there. Pause the video and go ahead and do that. And when you're done collecting all the data and information you can, I want you to take as many notes with your partners as you can about number 8. So use the table that compares the two animals and explain why the wildebeest population increased more than the buffalo population from 1970 to 1975. Make some predictions about what the population of these two animals will look like in the future. So I'm going to ask you to answer this as a mastery check in the Edpuzzle video. So you can use your student activity sheet to write down all your notes and get your ideas down and then answer it in the video. Then finally, next steps. So what questions do you have about those factors you identified to interact that affect the animal populations in the Serengeti? So what questions do you have? What should we do next? Jot down all your ideas here and we'll continue with our next investigation. Make sure that you are adding to your incremental modeling tracker at the front of your binder and recording what you did today and in every lesson. It will help you a lot at the end of the unit. All right, good luck.